Welcome to the lecture on Chapter 17. We're going to be talking about the endocrine system here in Chapter 17. The endocrine system and the nervous system are both communication systems within the human. This is also going to be part of our system of coordination. The endocrine system uses hormones, whereas the nervous system uses neurotransmitters. In this chapter, we're going to be looking at the endocrine system, and we're going to see how it functions. We're going to look at the glands, the hormones, and the effects that they have. We're going to look at some details regarding particular hormone history. What is the production of these hormones? How are they transmitted, and how do they work? The endocrine system and stress. In chapter 15, we'll talk about something called our autonomic nervous system, which is our fight or flight response, our stress response. And the endocrine system also has an action in stress. And then we're going to look at paracrine secretion as well as certain endocrine dysfunctions. Here is the set of learning outcomes for section 17.1. So let's take an overview of the endocrine system. The body has a number of ways to communicate between cells. We have four major mechanisms of communication. We have our gap junctions, which are going to be small pores in the cell membrane that are going to allow certain signals to pass through from cell to cell. It's also going to allow things like electrolytes and specified nutrients to go from cell to cell within a membrane. We have our neurotransmitters. These are going to be released from neurons to travel across what we call a synaptic cleft to a second cell. That second cell can be a second neuron, or it can be an effector cell like a skeletal muscle. We have paracrines. These are going to be secreted from certain cells within a tissue, and they're going to have an effect on nearby cells in the same tissue. So we're going to talk about that paracrine secretion. Hormones are going to be chemical messengers that are going to travel a distance away from the release from the gland that they came from via the bloodstream to an effector organ. The endocrine system uses glands and tissues and cells that secrete particular hormones. When we study these systems, this is the study of endocrinology. We also look at the treatment of the disorders of the endocrine system here. Endocrine glands are glands that are going to traditionally secrete hormones, where hormones are going to be those chemical messengers that are going to be transmitted by the bloodstream to elicit some kind of response from our target tissue or organ. This is often considerably distant from the gland that released the hormone. If we look here, we have a number of glands. We start here at the brain. Here we have the pineal gland here in the midsection of the brain, right at the base of the ventricles. We have the hypothalamus, and then we have the pituitary gland that comes off of the hypothalamus. We have the thyroid gland, and then we have our parathyroid gland. Here in the chest wall, we have the thymus. Here we can see the front side of the thyroid gland. Here, as we travel down, here we have the pancreas, and then right on top of the kidneys, we have the adrenal glands. As we pass down into the reproductive tract, we have the gonads, which are going to be the testes and the ovaries. A comparison of the glands within the endocrine system, we have what we call endocrine versus exocrine glands. Exocrine glands have what we call ducts. These are going to be openings that are going to secrete some kind of mucosal enzyme or digestive mucosa into the digestive tract. It's going to be an external secretion, so it's going to go outside of the exocrine gland and work outside in the digestive system. Endocrine glands have no ducts. These are going to have very peculiar capillaries called fenestrated capillaries. These are going to be a network that are going to allow for the uptake of hormones into the bloodstream. And so these are going to be internal secretions. This intracellular effect is going to basically alter the metabolism of our target cell, changing that metabolism depending on what hormone is being released. Both systems are going to be systems of internal communication. We can compare these based on a number of different characteristics. Let's look at the speed and persistence of response. The nervous system reacts very quickly within milliseconds, and so it also stops just abruptly. As quickly as the stimulus is taken away, the nervous response ends. The endocrine system acts very slowly. This can take seconds to minutes to hours to days. It can have an effect that may continue on for a number of days or even longer. Adaptation to long-term stimuli. The nervous system is going to decline its response over time because it begins to adapt very quickly to this long-term stimuli. Endocrine responses are going to persist. They adapt very slowly and will continue to adapt as long as that stimuli is there. The area of effect, the nervous system is going to be very targeted and specific to one organ, whereas the endocrine system, because of the hormones being spread within the bloodstream, have very widespread effects and can target a bunch of organs at one time. We do have several chemical functions as both hormones and neurotransmitters. Norepinephrine, dopamine, antidiuretic hormone are some of these chemicals that have both hormonal and neurotransmitter effects. Both of these systems can have very similar effects on their target tissues. Both norepinephrine and glucagon can cause glycogen to be hydrolyzed by the liver to produce glucose. Two of our systems can regulate each other. Our neurotransmitters can have an effect on glands, and our hormones can have an effect on our neurons. We do have some neuroendocrine cells that do share some characteristics with both systems. The neuron-like cells that secrete oxytocin in the blood are going to have that kind of neuroendocrine function. Our target organs or cells are going to be organs or cells that have receptors for that hormone and they can respond to it. If there is no receptor, there is no response. Some of our target cells can possess enzymes that can convert a circulating hormone into a more effective form. So if we have a particular hormone that is in a state where it is non-functional, and then we have an enzyme basically turn that on, and now we have a functional enzyme that can then be in its active form, and we have then the response to the target tissues. So if we're looking at a neurotransmitter versus a hormone, we have our neuron that releases its nervous impulse. Once we get to the axons to the synapse, we then are going to release that neurotransmitter into the synaptic cleft to receptors on our target tissue. Here we have our endocrine cells that are going to release hormones into the bloodstream. That bloodstream is going to carry hormones a distance away, where it will then be released into its target cell, and that target cell will then have some kind of metabolic response to that hormone. That's the end of section 17.1. When we come back, we're going to talk about the hypothalamic pituitary system, which includes the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland.